Hi, and welcome to episode 100.
Woohoo!
I love it. I can't believe we've got 100 episodes.
Sorry for
under
screaming in
our belt.
everybody's ears.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll love that in the car. People freaking out in the car. It's hard to believe we have 100 episodes under our belt, and it's been a great run, and it continues to just be a blast, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're wondering how there's 100 episodes, it's because we were formerly known as the Path to Profit podcast. We recently rebranded, but we kept counting the episodes because we've come so far. And one of the reasons we switched is because I think that running a podcast has taught us a lot about productivity.
Oh, definitely. And also I think it speaks to what we teach our clients, which is to focus on that niche. And so we had a wider scope, and now we're downsizing that scope, down niching.
We're narrowing the focus.
Exactly.
And claiming our expertise, really, because I think that productivity is one of the essential things that we teach at the pathtoprofitacademy.com. And if you're brand new to the podcast today, yes, we are always this silly, but maybe always not quite so disorganized. This is episode 100 of Structure and Flow. And I'm Dr. Minette Riordan, your co-host, along with
I'm Brad Dobson.
And we're here to have some fun, but also to share with you something pretty new and exciting. Over the previous 4 episodes, we talked about our brand new unique productivity style quiz. And a lot of you have gone and taken that. So thank you for doing that to learn about your productivity style. But what do you do with all that information once you actually learn it? How does it help you to improve productivity and to increase how much you're getting done on a regular basis?
Yeah, and whether you're a commander, a contemplator, a conductor, or a creator, which once again, you should have found out by taking that awesome quiz at pathtoprofitacademy.com/UPS quiz, which you heard in the last episode. But in this case,
we had so much trouble getting our microphones getting our microphones going and deciding that, we needed to brush our teeth, and I had to go put some earrings on.
We are actually organized. We have all this great stuff printed out. We organized the episode.
If you're seeing on YouTube, we've got our nice template here for planning. I think we got super excited that it's the 100th episode. Can you believe it? Wow, 100 episodes.
Okay, we just went full circle back.
We did go full circle, full back. So what we want to introduce you today is part 1 of a 9-part series that we're calling the 9 Pillars of Productivity. As a creative myself, and I would say that Brad in his way is creative, although he loves structure more than I do, I have fallen in love with structure, and I'm actually pretty damn productive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get a lot of stuff done. In fact, we just celebrated our 23rd wedding anniversary recently. It was pretty cool. And Brad wrote me this really beautiful letter. And in the letter,
I told her she works too much.
Yeah, he did. He totally nailed me. And when I'm not working, I'm painting. And it feels like I'm working to everybody else in the family, although it doesn't feel like work to me. And in fact, what I'm doing most days doesn't feel like work to me either. I love what I do. And so we realized in our work with ourselves and in our work with our clients that there's kind of 9 key areas that also connect to your unique productivity style that we want to emphasize when it comes to creating a productivity blueprint that works for you. Because something else that we know to be true about ourselves and about creatives, no 2 people work the same. No 2 people can follow the same path or the same blueprint or the same rules. I think it's why so many of us become entrepreneurs that are creative and have struggled in more corporate settings is because we're trying to fit into someone else's box. I say it's time to shred the box and put it in the recycle bin and create something new and really unique to you. And we're hoping we're going to help you do that over the next 9 episodes.
Yeah, and these 9 pillars, we're going to list them out here, but we're going to do 1 episode for each. And
otherwise it'd be really long.
Yeah.
And you get really tired of listening to us.
If that sounds like too much, it's not. There's just a whole bunch that you and we can learn about productivity as it relates to each of the different unique productivity styles. So let's go through just real quick what the 9 pillars are. Oh, you didn't alphabetize them. Oh no, my ADD is cutting in.
But it's pretty and colorful. And look on, if you're looking on YouTube, we have this awesome little chart that we've created here.
All right.
And no, they are not alphabetized, but I could do that for you, honey.
Okay. Well, I'll go through them in the non-alphabetized version. environment, energy, boundaries, support, goal setting, planning, systems, tasks, and focus.
And there actually is a flow here to each of these. And no, it's not alphabetical, but it's the things that I think that you need to do first. So if you imagine that you're building a Lego brick house, you start with your foundation, with your floor. And I think environment is one of the most foundational aspects of any great productivity plan. So today we're going to zero in on environment and why environment matters. What do we mean by environment? And how can you make shifts in your environment to increase productivity according to your unique productivity style?
Good stuff. And I'm going to introduce that with a quote from Gretchen Rubin, who is
Can we talk about her more? Like we talk about her all the time.
A current favorite of ours.
Maybe if we talk about her enough, she'll come as a guest on our podcast.
Now that would be cool.
If you know Gretchen Rubin, will you introduce us?
Yeah, hook us up with that. Maybe she's just like GretchenRubin@gmail.com.
Like go stalk her on social media.
Here's the quote. In the scope of a happy life, a messy desk or an overstuffed coat closet is a trivial thing. Yet I find, and I hear from other people that they agree, that getting rid of clutter gives a disproportionate boost to happiness.
Such a great quote.
Mm-hmm. So true. So true. I am a big declutterer, but I'm not good at it. So in other words, I really want it. I really want things to be clean and relatively empty. And they slowly build up, and then I don't have good habits around decluttering. I'm not yet a member of the declutterati.
And I personally don't mind clutter. I mind dirt, but I don't mind clutter. But clutter usually leads to more dirt, right? So, and it's funny, we have spaces in our home that we tend to keep pretty clean, like our living room is neat and our bedroom is actually really neat most of the time as well. The kitchen is not just neat, but clean. A cluttered counter or a kitchen sink full of dishes like it is right now can really make me crazy. And so I love what she said about it gives you an unexpected boost to your happiness. And I found, like, I got up this morning, it was a fun weekend, but we had a 2-day retreat with our clients last week. So everything came home Friday night and just got dumped in my office, like all the packing boxes from our retreat, all the art supplies. And not 2 days before that, I had come home from an art retreat of my own that I had attended, which is amazing. And I'd come home with a whole box of art supplies from that. So all of a sudden, every surface in my office, tabletops, floors, desks, were completely cluttered. And then I played in my craft room office / studio all day yesterday and did my homework for my creative depth coaching program. So half the art supplies came out of the boxes and the nice storage bins that they're supposed to be in. So I walked in there at about 6 o'clock this morning while the coffee was brewing. And I just spent 15 minutes neatening. It still needs a lot more neatening, but I find that when it gets too cluttered, I can't focus. And so there's a fine line between what amount of clutter is comforting or actually creates creativity and what amount of clutter completely stops your creativity and your productivity.
Yeah. And, we could go down that rabbit hole. I think certainly if you have stuff that has been labeled as clutter for over 6 months, maybe you have a problem like we do. If it's 5 years, seriously, throw that in the garbage can. 6 weeks, not so bad. You can give yourself a break on that.
This would have been a really good episode to have our friend Rochelle Price on to talk about ways to manage stuff in your office space.
Yeah.
She's so good at that.
She's a talent.
So we may have another one about environment with her.
So on from clutter, what about noise?
Noise for me is way worse than stuff when it comes to clutter. I cannot focus when there is verbal clutter around me. I was never a student that worked well in a noisy classroom. I was never a student that liked working in libraries. I was too easily distracted by people and by conversations. Brad and I tried sharing an office, and it's annoying when one or the other of us is on the phone. And I didn't feel like I could be coaching clients either.
Oh, sure.
With lots of vocal or verbal clutter. So for me, audio clutter is a big one, but you have a different perspective.
Yeah, for me, conversations are brutal because my head just wants to be in the conversation. I can happily listen to music with lyrics, no problem. Ads with talking ads, that's a problem. But, death metal, no problem. Listen to it all day, rock out to it. It's great. Or Jackson Brown, or classical, or punk. Just bring it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I can't work to music unless it is lyric free.
yeah, that's funny. Yeah,
Oh,
for me,
because I
it's so
love
much.
words. I
It's so
listen to the
much.
words.
Yeah, the conversation really, really gets to me. And I asked this question to our clients, and a number of them were quite clear. They need ambient music. They want music, and that getting back to something we mentioned in a previous podcast, I think we tend to use music and noise to cover the blank spaces that we don't really want to deal with, which is the same as why we don't want to meditate. We're a little fearful of that, but they were happy and wanted ambient. So there's some really neat resources out there. There's a couple websites that will give you either just rain or a Starbucks background constantly. um, those types of things. There's Moby has a long ambient series that's completely free. You can get it on Spotify, I think, or on YouTube. Just play that forever.
We should link to some of those great resources in our show notes
Yeah,
about
definitely.
where they can find some of those ambient.
Yeah, I find it difficult to set myself up for failure by saying I have to have silence, and the same is true with meditation. You're a much more powerful meditator if you can handle different noise inputs when you're meditating instead of having to have silence. So if you can be a little bit more flexible about noise so that the neighbor's dog barking for 10 minutes doesn't just crater your whole day.
So I want to back up a minute about this whole idea of environment and start with something actually a little bit simpler, which is, are you working at home? Most of you who are listening to this that are creative entrepreneurs may be working at home. You may be working in a cubicle space, or you may have a dedicated office. But I wanted to say something about working at home because this is something that has come up in quite a few of my coaching conversations over the last 5 years. And this is about having a dedicated workspace in your home. We are incredibly fortunate. We get it. We have a spacious house. So we each have offices. Mine doesn't have a door, and it's close to the kitchen. And I love my space and I don't want to give it up, but I do get a little grumpy when I get some of that verbal clutter or audio clutter. I guess audio clutter, if I'm coaching a client and Brad's banging in the kitchen, he makes a lot of noise in the kitchen.
No, I don't.
You do, and so does Maggie. I realize that, as we're recording this, Maggie's going to be walking in the door any minute. So if you hear a loud child shouting hello in the background, it's our teenage daughter coming home from school. But the thing about environment and having a dedicated workspace, if your workspace is your kitchen table, but your family also eats at the kitchen table, it impacts your productivity because every day you're having to scoop stuff up. It gets stacked in a pile. You spend a lot of time the next day trying to find everything that you've piled up to clear off the kitchen table or even just push to the side. So I highly encourage you to find a corner of a room and even just get a small stand-up desk. I got one for $50 on Amazon, or a space in your bedroom or a corner of the dining room or living room that's a dedicated workspace that's your desk. Because I find that this breeds productivity when you can literally just sit down at your desk and get going, whether that's in your journal, with your calendar, and with your computer. It's so important. And to me, it goes towards treating your business like a business and not treating your business like a hobby, to have a sort of a boundary around this workspace. And it also means that when you have this boundary around your workspace, you get to walk away at the end of the day. So a couple of fun solutions that my clients have done, they've carved out small spaces. And if it's in a public space, a hutch is really good if it has doors that you can close, because then you walk away from it and it doesn't feel like it's taking over your living room. Or I've had clients just toss a sheet over the workspace as well,
Sure.
So that you can't see all the clutter underneath it, and it says my office is closed.
So what about folks that are doing more traditional art, like say 30,000 pound bronze sculpture
Yeah.
and computing work?
Yeah, they have studios.
So they just have a studio and that's their workspace on top of whatever their normal computer type of work is.
So professional working artists that I know usually have a large studio, even if it's just their garage. I have a friend here who is actually a bronze sculptor, and she does a lot of her work outside on her back porch. But in the studio, there's still a dedicated office space. So there's a desk where you're still collecting paperwork, where your computer is, where you're doing your work. I try really hard. I'm not always successful at keeping my computer away from all the paint. Drives Brad crazy.
She was walking around with splatter paint on her face today. So.
I was splatter painting. I still look at, I washed my hands. It's not on my hands or my fingernails anymore. There's no spots on my glasses at the moment. But yes, even if you're working in a creative design studio of some type, and that could be true whether you're a graphic designer or a writer or an interior designer, having a dedicated office space where you put more, put the paperwork and processes that are specifically related to running your business. And there's something really magical about doing time blocking to manage your environment where you say, I'm going to spend an hour at my desk today doing business tasks to run and operate your business.
So I was going to segue from the splatter painting to colors, but you raced ahead with something else. But let's move on to colors. What can we do with colors in our workspace, in our environment to help our productivity?
So warm colors or cool colors can work, but it needs to be a color that you love. Like there are some people that say yellow can lead to aggression. They say you should never put yellow in a cafeteria because it's bad for your digestion.
Ooh.
But my office is bright, sunny yellow, and I love it, right? To me, it is a happy, beautiful color, although at the moment you can't see much of the wall. It's covered in art. So we're in Brad's office right now, and so we're going to be repainting his kind of a warm gray, not a cool gray. So it's a gray with just a little bit of brown in it so that it feels really warm and not cold or sterile, right? So are you working in a space where you love the colors? If you don't, you could repaint. If you can't repaint, hang a drape. Like get a room divider or just tack up a beautiful piece of fabric on the wall or hang some of your own art. I remember Brad and I, one of the things that connected us when we first met is that we both love Van Gogh and we both had cheap versions of Van Gogh's Starry Nights on the walls in our apartments when we were students. But even inexpensive art, which you can get almost anywhere, we get more compliments in our house on $100 painting that we bought at IKEA.
Definitely.
Than a lot of other stuff. And we bought it when we had a big, giant office in Texas when I had my publishing company and we needed some cheap art to fill the office. We bought this beautiful painting of pink cosmos. They're gorgeous. And it wasn't very expensive and it fills the wall space. So really look around and notice, how do you feel in your space? Because how you feel in your space directly impacts your energy. And we're going to talk a lot in the next pillar about energy and the importance of energy. But color, clutter, and dedicated workspace are three things to focus on in your environment.
So what about the physicality of your environment? I spent probably 20 years with a spine twisted around, sitting in a desk chair in a cubicle land, and then finally learned about standing desks and didn't look back. I've been taking some breaks lately because I'm doing a lot of triathlon training and my legs are sore. But
we're standing up right now.
Yeah, I really love it. And it takes one of those things. It takes 2 or 3 weeks for your feet and your back to be sore, and you can transition between sitting and standing. But gosh, what a great addition to my environment for blood flow, for everything. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm thinking about Gretchen Rubin again, because she shares a hilarious story about her sister who she convinced that she needed a treadmill desk.
Oh, the treadmill desk, yes.
And so that's an option as well. I have another friend who lives over in Ojai who posted a picture of her beautiful back porch with her treadmill desk. and her gorgeous view of the mountains and the trees, right? So a treadmill desk may be a good option for part of the time. I have a small stand-up desk that works some of the time. I like to sit. I spend way too much time sitting, but when I'm speaking or doing the recordings, I actually prefer to stand. If I'm hosting a webinar, I prefer to stand. But Brad's right. It's important that in terms of environment and what you have around you, you have something soft to stand on. So I know you have one of those like gym floor mats, like you would like a kid's play mat to stand on underneath the desk to add a little more support and cushion. So my massage therapist and my chiropractor both talk a lot about your chair and how important it is to get the right chair if you're sitting a lot and to get the right height. Some people love to sit on bouncy balls or I don't know what they're called, the ones where you're sitting basically on your knees.
Yeah, I don't know what those are called.
So I've tried one of those as well. But one of the things is to make sure that the height of your chair is right. So you're not putting undue stress and pressure on your body. And in fact, Maggie was sharing that laptops are the worst for people with posture, that we don't pay as much attention and we often can't get enough height to really be resting our arms instead of holding them up out in front of us. And then when we're holding them up in front of us, we're hunching our shoulders. You can't see me hunching my shoulders, but you can probably hear it in my voice that when I'm hunching my shoulders and not relaxed, it changes my voice and my energy and my breathing as well. So posture and chair
ergonomics is a big deal, folks.
Ergonomics is such a cool word as well.
So how do these, I got it in my mind, I want to understand how some of these pillars relate to our different productivity styles. We went through different parts of your environment, the color and your sitting versus standing and the noise around you, and maybe you like it hot or cold, or all those different things that can affect your environment. But we have different types of people and they all process their world differently.
They do. And, the one thing that's in our notes that we didn't touch on was co-working spaces. And you may be someone who likes the Starbucks environment with a little more organization. So rather than working at home, maybe you love working at a co-working space. And that can work for some of the productivity styles and not so well for others, including those of us. So I'm going to start in the reverse order here and talk about the creator first. So if you remember, the creator is the most outwardly creative, but also the most outwardly charismatic and extroverted. They thrive on conversation and on influence of others. When it comes to environment, they love stimulation. So a co-working space could be a blessing and a curse. They could actually get more done and find themselves being held more accountable by being in a co-working space where other people are working, but they could also spend more time in the kitchen making coffee and chatting with people than they could getting work done, because they love having the stimulation of other people around. And the hardest part for a true creator is working home alone. It's very isolating. So they might find themselves spending way too much time surfing on the internet and starting conversations on Facebook because it nurtures their need for stimulation. Or they have a hard time sitting still at a desk. They need to be up walking and moving. So walking and planning, taking your journal to the beach or a coffee shop to do some planning outside of your office can actually be really, really healthy for the creator.
Because they don't prefer that structure quite as much.
No, and they don't need it. In fact, they don't thrive in a ton of structure. And while they know they need planning and they know they need structure, that structure needs to be loose and flexible in terms of their environment. I'm a great example. Before I moved into the office space in our house that I'm in now, I bopped around the house. I might work in the living room or upstairs in my bedroom or in the guest room, formerly my craft room, or I'd bop in here with Brad for a while. So until I found my home space, you could find me all over the house. And it wasn't necessarily productive because then there's stuff all over the house. So that kind of impacted the clutter, right?
So
you want to talk about the contemplator? Because that's you.
Yeah. Let me see what you've got here. Likes a routine and peaceful, organized environment. I think she's got me nailed here, folks. With no conflict. Yeah, no conflict. Easily overstimulated by people, noise, or distractions. Definitely. When I was at a co-working space, which I loved going to the co-working space. Shout out to Impact Hub in Santa Barbara. Really neat place. Great people. But the way I wanted to work was with my headphones in and music loud so that I couldn't hear anything else and just So I was basically a warm body at the co-working space. I wasn't, like Manette said, the creator who's off talking with everybody. So I can work at a co-working space, but I still need to be able to cut out all of the conversations. And
And it,
certainly I love my office now, where I
yeah,
have it to myself and
you'll love it even
I
better when
can
it's gray, right?
focus.
And so for contemplators who are working at home, you're probably the most successful at working home. You're probably pretty committed. You have a love of a neat environment. Clutter does not support you. And you need to be in a room with a door so that when it comes to that focus, that you can shut the door and not be overwhelmed or distracted. Every time Brad shuts the door, then the cat comes and cries at the door.
Yeah.
Says, let me in, let me in. So let's talk about the conductor. So the conductor is a lover of harmony. They like the contemplator. They don't love conflict, but they can easily adapt to people and surroundings. So they're actually pretty comfortable working in a co-working space. They can get a little lonely and isolated at home as well because they're people, and they love a collaborative environment. So they can get very isolated and pretty stuck when they're working at home alone. They need to have people to talk through the way they process time and tasks, and the way they relate to getting things done and productivity is through collaboration and conversation. So if you're working from home in your environment, you might consider starting a small group mastermind, just finding 3 to 4 friends or colleagues who are in a similar stage in their business, who get together once a week, either in person, or you could do it using Zoom, or Skype's a little bit harder. Zoom is our favorite tool for doing that. You could even do it over the telephone. You could do with your smartphone. You could do a group connection call, and or free telesum, free conference call is another great resource for doing this. But get together with other people for collaboration, feedback, and input. This will help you be happier in your at-home environment on an ongoing, regular basis.
Cool. So that was the
Conductor.
conductor. The commander likes to dominate the environment around them. What does that mean?
So they're very results driven, right?
Okay.
So they're going to be pretty picky and fussy about how the furniture is organized and where things are set up. And they're going to like things to be neat and orderly, and they want other people to do it for them.
Gotcha.
So they're not necessarily that worried about doing it themselves, but they need a lot of autonomy in their environment. So the commander works best with a dedicated office space with a door where they can go in there and they just shut the door and they get their work done, because remember, they're focused, they're driven. Mm-hmm. And it can probably build up and get pretty messy until they feel like it's going to explode. And then if they're a smart commander, they'll ask for help in getting it cleared up. So remember, commanders need team around them to help them be successful, because they're so focused on the big picture vision that they can lose track of some of the small day-to-day details of running their business. But remember, they're in command, they're in charge. When it comes to time, they're bulldozers, and they need to remember to slow down, take a little time off to look at their daily calendar and do some planning to make sure they're taking the right steps and surrounding themselves with the right people to be successful in their environment.
Cool stuff. So that was the commander, the contemplator, the conductor, and the creator as it relates to the environment, one of the 9 pillars of productivity that we're going through.
It is an environment. This one probably went a little longer on the recording than we anticipated, but it's such an important topic. And I think it truly is foundational. If you're not happy in your workspace, it's going to impact your energy, which is pillar number 2 that we'll be talking about on the next episode.
That was a pro segue. Did you hear how she did that?
That was really good, wasn't it?
Cool stuff. We have a couple of resources that we think you should take a look at related to this. Of course, Gretchen Rubin is pretty cool. Take a look at Stampington magazines, where women create. Stampington.
Oh, can I say a couple of words? I realized I put those resources in there and then didn't refer to them.
Oh, okay.
So let me just do that quickly. That's why they're in there, because I meant to mention them earlier. So this is our disorganized environment, apparently, our talking environment today. Marie Kondo is super popular. The Art of Tidying Up is probably a book that you've heard of. And condoing, her name has actually become a verb. And if you are an extreme member of the Declutterati. You will love her book. If you're not worried about clutter, don't read it because it might drive you crazy. But I wanted to mention it because I think that she has some really great ideas about only touching things once and only surrounding yourself with things that you really love. So it makes it a lot easy to decide what to let go of in your space so that you can make space for your office and your work time and only keep the things that you love. It's one of my big takeaways from her work. And then the other thing is I'm a huge fan of Stampington magazines. They are a publisher out of the Los Angeles area, and they have some really beautiful, very artsy magazines. But one of their magazines is called Where Women Create. And it's all creative women entrepreneurs, not just artists, but creatives of all kinds who are making really cool stuff. And they have pictures of their studios. And I find it super inspiring because they are artists and creatives. They have a lot of stuff. And to see how other people are organizing their office and workspaces can be super inspiring if you're feeling stuck. And also you could just go on Pinterest or Instagram and look for artist studios or creative workspaces or tiny homes in the backyard.
So maybe we shouldn't lead them towards Pinterest on a productivity podcast.
It is kind of a rabbit hole, but you know what? We went to Pinterest looking for ideas to set up our recording studio, which is one of our
definitely
projects that we're working on. And so this is a great example of one of those things that's going to increase and improve our own productivity. Is we literally mucked around for 30 minutes. Brad got to set the microphones up, and we usually batch record episodes, so that helps. We only do it once, but then it took us like 15 minutes to get the sound on the microphones the way we wanted it. And, you know, I had to do the lipstick and the powder, right? But it would be nice to have a place, one, that the background looks a little bit nicer than either one of our two offices, and two, where all we have to do is go in and sit down and start recording and eliminate that initial fussy time of trying to set the systems up. So I would invite you, as you're thinking about environment, what can you do to have your environment support your productivity instead of inhibit your productivity? And my challenge to you is to make one change, just one simple change. That could be decluttering. It could be going and buying a new file folder, but just one thing that would instantly improve your environment and make you happier to be in that workspace. And I would love to have you share that on the comments page for our show notes at pathtoprofitacademy.com/podcast and tell us what you're going to do.
Or take a picture of your workspace and let us know what your battle station looks like.
Yeah, that's an awesome one. You could share that on our Path to Profit Academy Facebook page. We'd love to see some pictures.
Nice. If you haven't taken the quiz yet, once again, like we said, it's pathtoprofitacademy.com/UPS quiz. We'll have that in the show notes. It's a fun, quick, short thing. But you get your results in the email, and it tells you a lot about yourself, which that's important.
It's really important. So have fun, and we can't wait to see what you create in your environment this week.
Next up will be episode 101. We have a fun interview with Michael Prywis about creatives and the law.
And the law specifically around copyright and intellectual property and things you should be thinking about as you are putting your creative genius out into the world.
Bye, guys.
See you later. Have a great week.